What if the love story we waited 3 summers for wasn't meant to end happily ever after? Because when the summer I turned pretty promised closure, what we got instead felt like heartbreak disguised as a finale. I've watched every single episode since that first Cousins Beach sunset. The laughter, the longing, the soft chaos of growing up between two brothers. And for the first time, I felt cheated. Why does season 3, despite being beautifully filmed, feel so emotionally hollow? Why does every scene look like summer, but feel like winter? It's because we didn't get an ending. We got a setup. A trailer for a movie that doesn't even exist yet. And that, my friends, is the real heartbreak. The promise of a perfect summer, season 3 was supposed to be the chapter. The one that would finally bring peace after all the yearning, the heartbreak, the slow burns, and the almost confessions. Jenny Han's third book, We'll Always Have Summer, gave us closure. It gave us maturity, choice, and a kind of love that only comes after loss. But when the final season arrived, it felt different, quicker, colder, like someone had hit fast forward on a story that was meant to be slow and sacred. Belly, Conrad, Jeremiah, the holy trinity of teen heartbreak, were finally supposed to grow. But instead of evolution, what we got was compression. 11 episodes trying to tie up 3 years of emotional chaos. And what's worse, the parts that mattered most were left out. The summer that lost its breath, let's talk pacing. Because season 3 didn't just move fast. It sprinted like it was running out of time. Every scene felt like a checkpoint instead of a heartbeat. Every emotional moment ended before it could hurt. And that's the problem. This story was built on feeling. On the pauses between dialogue. On the look Conrad gives Belly before he says nothing. On the way Jeremiah smiles like he's pretending not to be in pain. But here, the camera kept moving, as if afraid of stillness. And that stillness, that's where the summer I turned pretty used to live. The missing monologue, here's the biggest betrayal, Belly lost her voice. Literally. The showrunners decided to remove her monologue this season, stripping away the most intimate part of her story, her thoughts. And without that, we weren't inside her anymore. We were just watching her from the outside. Her scenes with Conrad, once emotionally charged, now felt like surface tension, moments waiting to explode but never quite catching fire. Remember how in season 1 and 2, every look had meaning. This time, it felt like everyone was just waiting for the next scene. That's not storytelling. That's speedrunning heartbreak. The wedding nobody wanted most of the season revolved around Belly and Jeremiah's wedding planning. Cake tastings, awkward dances, cute but empty montages. Moments that felt lighthearted but hollow. The problem wasn't the concept. It was the context. Because while Belly tried on dresses, her heart was somewhere else. And deep down, we knew it. This storyline could have been powerful. It could have shown us Belly's doubts, her confusion, her lingering love for Conrad. But instead, it became background noise. A wedding without emotion is just an event. A love story without silence is just noise. The fast, forward ending the book version gave us time. Time for Belly to make mistakes. Time for Conrad to heal. Time for Jeremiah to accept. The show gave us 11 episodes. And in those 11, it tried to cover everything: grief, love, regret, redemption. That's like trying to fit a lifetime into a weekend. By the time Belly made her choice, it didn't feel earned. Not because we disagreed, but because the story never gave her emotions room to breathe. And that, right there, is the tragedy of this season. Not that she chose Conrad, but that she didn't have enough time to feel why. Why it feels like something's missing. Here's where the secret begins to unfold. Season 3 feels incomplete because it is. You can sense it in the pacing, the skipped dialogue, the quiet hints that something bigger was being saved for later. That's because it was. Jenny Han confirmed that the story isn't over. That there's a movie coming, a feature-length conclusion that's supposed to give us the real ending. But here's the catch. It's already too late. Because by holding back the emotional payoff, by saving the best parts for the big screen, Season 3 became something it was never meant to be: a bridge instead of a destination. The pain of holding back. Imagine reading the last page of your favorite book, only to realize the final chapter was missing. That's how the summer I turned pretty Season 3 feels. The build-up was there, the music, the nostalgia, the emotional setup. But the release, it never came. And that's not just a pacing issue. That's a storytelling crime. Prime Video had all the ingredients. The chemistry, the fanbase, the emotional history. But instead of closure, they gave us a cliffhanger wrapped in confetti. And the real question is why? Why stretch the ending into a movie when you could have finished it on the beach where it all began? Why trade emotion for marketing? Isn't that the opposite of what The Summer I Turned Pretty was always about? Love. Sincerity. Moments that last longer than a season. Instead, we got a finale that felt like a teaser. Subscribe point, natural and emotional. If you've ever loved a story so much that its ending haunted you, then you already understand what we're feeling. And trust me, what's coming next might just change the way we see this entire trilogy. So hit subscribe, because we're about to dig into the truth behind what really happened to Cousins Beach, and why this finale might not be the ending we think it is. Because the real question isn't who Belly chose, it's what she lost in the process. There's a reason Season 3 feels unfinished, because it was never meant to be finished. Every scene, every skipped beat, every moment that felt off wasn't an accident. It was by design. Jenny Han and Prime Video didn't want to end the story. They wanted to extend it. And in doing so, they changed everything we thought we knew about Cousins Beach. The unseen blueprint. When Season 3 entered production, something strange happened behind the scenes. The writer's room was split. Half wanted to end the trilogy on the beach, the way the novels did. The other half saw a bigger picture, a cinematic universe, spin-offs, an entire summer universe with prequels, sequels, maybe even adult storylines years later. And to make that happen, Season 3 had to hold back. It couldn't close every door because they needed some left open for what's coming next. But in doing so, they broke the heart of their own story. Because The Summer I Turned Pretty was never about expansion. It was about intimacy. It was about one girl, two brothers, and the fleeting pain of growing up too fast. Now, it's an empire. The franchise formula, you can feel it in the way the season ends, not with closure, but with potential. The pacing issues weren't just accidents, they were signals. A deliberate pause before a movie continuation. And if you look closely, you can see the pattern. Prime Video has been testing this formula since 2023, finishing hit teen shows not on streaming, but in theaters. It's about control. It's about profit. But above all, it's about ownership of the ending. Because once the story moves to the big screen, it's no longer yours, it's theirs. That's what makes Season 3 so haunting. We didn't just lose Belly's voice, we lost the audience's. The silence in between. You ever notice how Season 3 feels quieter? Like there's space between lines that used to be full of meaning. That's because they cut the dialogue. Entire emotional exchanges from the book were removed. Moments where Belly questions herself, moments where Conrad finally speaks his truth, gone, and in their place, Montage's music. Slow motion nostalgia that hides the emptiness underneath. It's poetic but hollow, almost like a love letter written by someone who's already moved on. Jenny Han's hidden hand now. Here's where it gets interesting. Jenny Han, the creator of both The Summer I Turned Pretty and To All the Boys I've Loved Before, knows exactly what she's doing. She's not just a writer, she's a strategist. She knows her audience, how we crave nostalgia, longing, closure. And she also knows how to withhold it. She learned it from To All the Boys. That series ended not with heartbreak, but with bittersweet possibility, the illusion of a happy ending while still keeping the door open. Season 3 uses the same trick. It gives you the wedding, the beach, the smiles. But if you listen closely, if you really pay attention, it's not joy, it's delay. Because the real ending, the final decision, hasn't happened yet.